Welcome back to another episode of Clare Schools. Today I'm going to be talking about the range of financial support that Cambridge has available for students who need it. Now, one of the main things I'm going to be talking about in this video is something called the Cambridge bursary. The Cambridge bursary is a bursary which makes available up to £3,500 per year, and in some cases up to £5,600 per year for students who need it. That need is judged according to factors I'll go into in a second, but first let me give you a bit more of the context and talk about student finance, student loans in general before moving on to the Cambridge bursary in particular. Now, if you're thinking of applying to university, you're probably aware that it is something that you now need to pay for, although quite what that means is something that sometimes people get a bit confused by. That's one of the main reactions I get when I go into schools and I talk about university, and I ask kids to say, what's the first thing you think of when you think about university? And almost always one of the first answers is, oh, it costs a lot of money. And in some senses that's right, and in other senses it's not. So back in 1997 or 1998, before student fees were introduced, university was completely free. You could go, you didn't pay anything, you had to look after yourself, cover your living expenses, but you weren't paying tuition fees. In 1998, the government introduced a £1,000 a year fee, which has now gone all the way up to £9,250. Now, that's a fee that you won't actually pay. You'll usually apply to the government for a student loan, and the government, via the student loans company, pays that fee directly to the university for you. So in that sense, it doesn't really cost a lot of money. You're not seeing that money go. It then manifests itself later down the line when you've got a job and when you start earning over a certain amount of money. Then the amount that you've paid for university, some of that gradually starts coming out of your income. The same goes for maintenance loans, which work a bit differently to tuition fee loans, which you never see that money, it just gets paid on your behalf to the university. Maintenance loans to cover your living expenses whilst you're at university, that gets paid direct to you, and then that is money which in increments you start paying back when you earn over a certain amount of money. Now, if you've been doing the figures as I've been talking, you may have calculated that that's, on average maybe about £50,000 of debt that a typical student who takes both the tuition fee and the maintenance loan will accumulate over their time at university, and that quite fairly sounds like a hell of a lot of money. And this large amount of money is often talked about in the terms of student debt, which I don't think is necessarily the best way to think about it, because for all intents and purposes this doesn't really work as debt or even like a loan. It's a bit more like a tax. So people who go to university on average tend to earn more than people who don't, and the government would like this to be seen, that the student fee is basically to be seen as a tax on people who go to university, and they pay that tax because they earn more than people who don't, and therefore they pay the government back for that opportunity they had to go to university and earn more. Now, my own opinion of the politics of this is not relevant, certainly not on this platform. I'm not going to talk about whether I think we should have to pay for the privilege of university. That's a completely different discussion. But let me just say I'm talking in terms of tax, graduate tax, which is the way the government wants to think about it. Not because I necessarily agree with that justification, but because I think it's the most practical way for us all to think about the student loan in its current form whilst it remains in its current form. Now, the maximum maintenance loan that you can apply for per year if you are living away from home and not in London, as you would be if you were going to Cambridge, is just over £9,000. So the Cambridge bursary is something that is given to you on top of that, and I say given because it is not a loan. The Cambridge bursary is not something you pay back, it is a bursary, not a loan. So it is money that is given to you for free, essentially. So how is this bursary calculated? Well, the full Cambridge bursary, which is £3,500 per year, so £10,500 over 3 years or £14,000 over 4 years if it's a 4-year course, that is available and payable to students whose household income is equal to or less than £25,000 per year. So if your household income is somewhere between £25,001 and £42,620, then you're eligible for a partial Cambridge bursary, so somewhere up to that £3,500 top figure. So I mentioned at the start of the video that the Cambridge bursary can also go up to £5,600 as a maximum, and that's available for independent students So care leavers or mature students who are also classed as independent students by the student loans company, they also have to have an income of less than £25,000. And then you might have guessed that independent students with a household income of between £25,001 and then that figure of £42,620 are eligible for a bursary going up to, but not quite reaching that £5,600 maximum. So it's important to stress that there's no limit on the number of Cambridge bursaries available. These are not scholarships, so they're not based on any kind of academic or non-academic factors or criteria. If you meet those criteria of household income, then you will be eligible and will get a Cambridge bursary if you get a place at Cambridge. And just in terms of practicalities, it's worth also saying that you are automatically assessed for your eligibility for a Cambridge bursary if you are also financially assessed by your Student Finance Authority. Now I'll put links to the full Cambridge Bursary Scheme website down below, and also the financial support section of the Cambridge website, so you can go there for more information. Now Cambridge University is made up of faculties and departments, so the subjects that you'll study, and also colleges. And both the faculties and departments and colleges may well have awards and grants and their own bursaries available for you. So that's worth checking into. And you can do that on the various individual faculty, department and college websites. Just to give you an example of some of the things that colleges might be able to help you out with, I'll put them up on the screen there and go through them. So some colleges give out book grants, software grants, general equipment grants, an amount of money to help you purchase necessary materials for you to undertake work for your course. Another one is scholarships for academic or other achievement. And then we have the money that some colleges will give out for exciting work-related or even non-work-related travel projects. Then some colleges will give out grants or loans to help with unforeseen financial difficulties. And then finally, we have the money that some colleges will give out on top of the Cambridge bursary, a kind of top-up bursary if needed to help out with other living costs. And as I said, you can find out specific information by college by going to college websites or by emailing the colleges directly. There's also a source of funding that's been quite recently made available at Cambridge. It just started in 2019, called the Stormzy Scholarship for Black Students, and that covers full tuition fee costs and makes a significant contribution towards living costs for up to 4 years of a Cambridge degree. And you can find information about that down below. I'll put a link to it as well on the Stormzy Scholarship website. So hopefully that gives you a good basic idea of the range of financial support available for students at Cambridge. I just want to end by talking briefly about living costs in Cambridge in general. Now Cambridge is not a particularly cheap place to live, but there are loads of ways in which actually going to the university at Cambridge makes the cost of university less than it is at other universities. One of those is that you're accommodated by your college in college or in college-owned accommodation for the entirety of your course. And what that means is, because you have very short terms at Cambridge, only 8 weeks at a time, you're only paying for about, say, 30 weeks a year of rent. So that's a significant saving. And that's something that you rarely get the privilege of being able to do at other universities, where after your first year in university-owned halls, you're moving out into the private sector, you're renting a house with your friends, and it's very rare to be able to do that just for 30 weeks or 35 weeks a year. You have to do that for the whole year because it's not in a landlord's interest to charge you for less than a year and to leave then the house. They won't be able to find a tenant for sort of 15 or 20 weeks of the remainder of the year, so they charge you the full amount. So you're paying less on rent. Rent is also heavily subsidised in Cambridge by the individual colleges, which is worth noting as well. So I'm just ending with that to sort of put things in context for you. So you might have calculated that a combination of the maximum tuition fee loan for outside London plus the full Cambridge bursary gets you up to just over £12,000 a year in terms of living costs. And I want to make it clear that it is perfectly possible to live off that amount of money in Cambridge. Don't be put off because you might think that it's quite an expensive city. As cities go, it is less expensive to go to university there than it might seem based on the general kind of cost of living in that area of the country. So there we go, that's it. I think I've said more than enough for this video. As always, any comments, any suggestions for future videos, leave them down below. Please remember to like, share and subscribe. The channel is still growing, which is great to see. I hope you've noticed we've had loads of cool new videos, which luckily don't just feature me. We've had students talking about their experience at Clare. We're getting fellows, so academics at Clare, giving you sample lectures, talking about the subjects you can do, and there's loads more of that in progress and coming very soon. So watch out for it. As always, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you soon.